So my grandfather, Harry, is my father's father. His Hebrew name is Tzvi. I think there's quite a few Harrys that have got a Hebrew name of Tzvi. I think
Yeah.
because it comes from the name Herschel. I think in Yiddish they had the name Herschel, and Herschel and Tzvi is the same thing. I remember Jeff Kaplan said his late father's name was Herschel, Harry, and his Hebrew name was also Tzvi. So my grandfather, physically, he was a big, big man. My dad dwarfed in physical size compared to my grandfather. He was a big guy, and he was around at a time. Um, he used to have an operatic voice. Okay, and Stephen wants to come in. Stephen, Stephen, Stephen.
How you doing, man?
How's it, man?
Yeah,
I'm just doing a shiur dedicated to my late grandfather. It's his Yahrzeit today, on the 9th of
okay.
Adar.
Shalom. Ruchas Yomine.
Thank you, thank you. So it was my dad's dad, Harry Kabb. His Hebrew name was
Okay.
Lee. So I was just saying to the guys, he was physically a big man. He used to have an operatic voice, but he lost his ability to sing opera because I
Oh
think the
wow.
I remember the story is that he escaped on a boat and that
Yes.
the boat sank and he was on the water for a few days. I
Yes.
think in the Atlantic Ocean. I think it was the Atlantic, in like a
Right.
container or something like that. And
Okay.
he lost his operatic voice. He also lost
Sure.
an eye. I'm not quite sure how he lost his eye, but he never mentioned it. I think I was a young boy and we used to go shooting. I had a BB gun or a mushroom gun, and I
Yes.
asked
Yes.
him why he doesn't point it to that eye. I think he mentioned something that he lost an eye. But in that
Right.
generation, they never ever did talk about real trauma that they went through. Today, they're on
Okay.
the couch of the psychiatrist and the slightest thing, and they've got 20 sessions
Yeah.
that they need to talk
Yeah.
about. But that generation was very tough.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, just I miss him. I'm
I'm
sure my
sure. Sure.
brother does as well. And I want to
Well, we're
thank you
davening for
guys very
Mashiach now this afternoon. 6. We're
much.
davening at 6 o'clock for Mashiach. So please God,
Amen.
it should all come back. Yeah.
Amen. Um,
It's funny. My
so,
grandfather also used to sing in the choir. My late grandfather also had a voice something similar.
oh, good,
Sing in the choir. I
uh,
think it's a Berea Shul, the old Berea Shul. Sure.
good, good. I don't know if my grandfather sang in the shul choir, but he was more of an operatic singer.
Opera. Okay. Okay. So we've got something
Uh,
similar, both in the music game.
yeah. So, all right, I'm just going to teach some Torah in his memory. Okay, what
Man.
we're doing is, guys, we want to just study what is the difference between Shatnes and Kilayim, and what is the prohibition, and how does it affect us currently. Okay, so if you go to mydewishlearning.com, we're just going to go through what the word actually means. Um, if you look at the word Shatnes, it doesn't look like a Hebrew one. I mean, linguists have speculated that the term may come from the Coptic word shat, which means woven, and nutz, which means false, or from the Arabic word shas, meaning black gauze, or atmos, strong. So none of these explanations is universally accepted, and the word remains unknown. So basically, the rabbis of the Talmud understood shatnez to be a condensed version of three Hebrew words: shua, which means combed or guarded; tavui, which means spun; and nuz, which means woven. Uh, okay. And the laws of shatnez come from two biblical verses. The first one is the prohibition against mixing two species together. That's Kilayim, where it says in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 19, you shall not let your cattle mate with a different kind. You shall not sow your field with two kinds of seed. You shall not put on cloth from a mixture of shatnez. Then the second biblical verse, you shall not sow your vineyard with the second kind of seed. You shall not plow your ox and ass together. You shall not wear shatnez, wool, and linen together. That's from Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 9 to 11. So, according to the Talmudic rabbis, the Torah defines shatnez only as mixing linen made from the plant flax with wool or from sheep or lambs. So, the rabbis worried, however, that some less common fabrics, such as silk, might be confused for flax, and therefore prohibited mixtures involving such materials out of fear of marit ayin, in other words, giving the appearance of breaking a law. When silk became more common, such concerns disappeared, and later legal authorities eliminated these prohibitions altogether. This is from the Shulchan Aruch, section 298, verse 1. Okay, so the laws of Shatnes refer only to sewing wool and linen together in the same garment. They do not restrict wearing, for instance, a wool sweater with linen pants. The rabbis did extend the prohibition against shatnez to sitting on cushions made of shatnez or using towels or dishcloths made of shatnez, lest the material rub off onto one's clothing. But the prohibition is actually wearing it. It's not necessarily sitting on it. So it's derisive to wear it, but it's rabbinic to sit on it. So the laws are considered so important that one who sees another person wearing shatnez is supposed to strip the offending garment from the wearer, even in public and even if the wearer is one's rabbi. Some legal authorities, however, soften the stipulation, saying that if the person wearing shatnez is doing so unintentionally, then one should wait to speak to this person privately. I think if you ever want to go back to the community, that would be a very wise idea. To the rabbis of the Talmud and later generation, shatnez was a paradigm of the chok. In other words, what's a chok? It's a law without any logical explanation, like the paraduma. So defining shatnez as a chok, however, hasn't stopped generations of commentators from attempting to deduce some spiritual meaning from this strange law. So, for example, the mystics saw wool and linen as a symbol of mixing divinity with impurity, or as diluting the heavenly powers. So this is in the Tukkunei Zahor 109a. And one midrash traces the prohibition against shatnez to the story of Cain and Abel. This is quite famous, guys. In the Torah, Abel brings God an offering of sheep, and Cain brings some sort of plant offering. For reasons not explained in the biblical text, God accepts Abel's offering but rejects Cain's. It is explained. I don't agree with this article at all. So why is it explained, guys? Come on, you can be able to tell me. You know this, guys.
Why is what explained?
This article is not correct at this point, where it says, according to the article of Cain and Abel in Bereshit, God for some reason accepted one and not the other. Whoever wrote this article in my Jewish learning wasn't correct. We know why he accepted one as opposed to the others. Okay? God accepted Abel's offering because he gave of his best. It was actually Cain's idea. What upset Cain very much was that it was his idea and God accepted Abel's offering. But the reason why God accepted Abel's offering is Abel gave of the best that he had. Okay? He gave the best offering of sheep in his charge. He took the top and he did it with enthusiasm and spent money and made sure that he got of his very best. Even though it was Cain's idea, Cain didn't give more than a bit of plant material, and he didn't give of his best. So we do know the reason, actually. But obviously the issue of Kilayim comes back from some of that, because you've got the Midrash Tuhum Bereshit chapter 9 verse 9. So after Cain killed Abel, God decreed that the offering of the sinner should not be mixed with the offering of the innocent. This is a hint to it, but the reason why this article, I don't think, explained it well, is because if it was prohibited and Cain's automatic offering was prohibited based on the offering of a sinner, then why would we bring offerings of a vegetarian nature? We do. There's a flour libation offering for the poor and various other things, which is just as accepted as the rich give a slightly wealthier offering, according to one's affordability. So it's not true that inference necessarily is mixed from that. Do you agree, guys?
Yeah, but it depends. I mean, Cain gave it when he in all probability had money. He could have given something much better.
No, Gavin. You're talking about the time. Firstly, you talk about the time of creation. You're talking about the time that he had this idea to give Hashem an offering. He didn't give of his best. That was the bottom line. Whatever
Yes,
he
no,
had,
good.
he didn't give of it. It's nothing to do with having more money or having not money.
No, I'm
His
saying
idea,
you said that he gave a vegetarian
no,
offering.
no, that's not what I said. What I said is as follows: is that if you want to make the inference that a offering is inferior because it's not from animals, it's simply not true. That was my point. The opposite is because you can give, according to your means, a flour libation for the poor, those that can't afford meat, etc., and it's just as readily accepted by Hashem because it's the best that they can afford,
Yes,
and
that's what I was.
therefore,
That's exactly that was my comment. Exactly in line with this is that Cain obviously could afford more, and he gave a vegetarian off even because that's supposed to be given by the poor, not by somebody who's middle class or upper class. That's my point.
exactly. I apologize. I
No
misunderstood.
problem. But that's what I said. It's exactly what I
That's
was right.
that's exactly it. So what I'm saying is here is when it says that the offering of the sinner should not be mixed with the offering of the innocent, what it actually means is you cannot take the offering of one that gives wholeheartedly, that's pure-hearted, and mix it with one that contributes very little. That they are distinct, but we shouldn't make the assumption that necessarily the linen offering is less than the meat offering. It's about the heart of the giver, the enthusiasm, and the generosity to which that person can afford. Okay? So just to go through some of the halacha, Kilayim is a mixture of diverse kinds, a prohibition in Jewish law which prescribes the planting of certain mixtures of seeds, grafting, the mixing of plants in vineyards, the crossbreeding of animals, the formation of a team in which different kinds of animals work together. That's exactly what Kevin taught us the other day. That does form part of this law, Kev.
Huh?
Remember the other
floor.
day you taught us, yes, the law that
law. I thought you said floor. Okay.
no, that you can't have work certain types of animals together.
Yes.
It does form under Kilayim. So you can't wear certain mixtures of wool, linen garments, and you can't mix certain animals together, etc. So this working the animals together is a category. So these are the categories: interbreeding of animals of different species, planting mixed seeds, grafting of different species of trees, Shatnes, which is mixing wool and linen in garments, planting grain or seed crops in a vineyard, and ploughing or doing other work with two different species of animal. Okay. So good. Let me just see how much time has elapsed. I just need about 4 minutes, then I'm done. Guys, I want to thank you very much, by the way. So sheep wool and linen fabrics that have been hackled together or spun and woven together, that's what's prohibited. In other words, interlying wool, sheep wool, and linen together is forbidden. The two exceptions, Gavin, this is interesting, being garments of Kohanim, worn in the temple and tzitzit. Isn't that interesting?
So that's the exception.
Yeah.
So just repeat just from exception onwards. You said Kohanim could wear
the garments of Kohanim worn in the temple and tzitzit. Concerning tzitzit, the sages of Israel permit using wool and linen strings in tandem only when genuine blue dye tachelet is available. Whereas
So this is
Kabbalistic
potion in them.
sources, pardon?
But the Kohanim, Tetzaveh, but what the priests wore, Kohanim.
Yes,
Yes,
that's right. You're right, Steve. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what we're saying is here, even further, is that normal tzitzit that we wear today, because we don't have tachelet, you can't mix wool and linen because it's not the original. But in the original, where the blue dye tachelet is available, the Kabbalist even went a step further by encouraging this practice. The Torah forbids only wool and linen to be worn together. Okay? But you can use wool and linen strings in tandem when you've got tachelet. So it's not part of the garment, it's in the actual strings. The Kohanim vessels I'm not sure about. The prohibition of sowing together diverse seeds. You shall not sow your field with two kinds of seeds. That's in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 19. It's a prohibition of two or more vegetable crops with a radius of 3 handbreadths. In other words, about 27 centimeters from one another, where they draw nutrients from each other. Okay, so as a first resort, you have to distance them by obviously at least 6 handbreadths. Okay, which is approximately 54 centimeters, even if their foliage were to grow together and intermix. Okay, even Nachmanides said that the reason for the prohibition is that when they draw nutrients from each other, their properties and natural forms are changed spiritually. Therefore, the sower cancels the fixed design and purpose of the universe. Which is why it explains why certain grafting of species is forbidden. Okay, grafting of trees is treated in the Mishnah. This is in Kilayim. There's a whole section of Kilayim, chapter 1, verse 4. That's where you've got your issues of, for example, Gavin, you've got an etrog. An etrog is where some of these halachas come in, why we're so fussy about buying etrogim. All right, vineyards, the same thing. You can't grow different types of vineyards or similar plants which reach maturity with grain. So you can't mix them with grain. And Arthur and I covered this in Bava Basra. Remember, Arthur, when I was in Israel, about not mixing them together. Same thing with animals, including dogs, coyotes, wolves, etc. So you can't mate dogs and wolves together, or a horse and a mule.
Can we eat? I know there are fruits that have been mixed. Are we allowed to eat those fruits?
The truth of it is, I don't know more enough about this topic to tell you. I don't know the laws of Kilayim.
There are some mixed fruits that we actually buy. I don't know if you'll find them at any of the kosher places. I'm not sure, but.
I'm not sure. I mean, that's a complicated issue. Some of the reasons why they do mixed fruit is because they use them to retard insect growth. I mean, if you look at a natural banana growing, it's quite small and the seeds are quite prolific, whereas the slightly engineered form is better. And I see most people eating bananas today, to be honest, like at the shiur.
Yeah, no, they do. That's a good point.
So I don't know.
So as long as we don't do it, I think if you're a farmer and you're a Jewish guy, you can't do it. But if it's already been done, I presume you can. Because you don't know if it's been done or not. I mean, it's difficult to know.
It is difficult.
If someone gives you a plum that's like a variant of a plum and a nectarine, I think that does exist. You might not even know that it's a mixture. You just think it's a standard fruit.
Yeah, the truth of it is I don't know. Velvi Bokov runs the Shatnes lab.
Yeah, he's very good. Yeah.
And he'd find Shatnes in most things. But I don't know much about it. I just know that the Jewish world, I never heard about Shatnes until years ago. I didn't know about it. Everybody heard about kashrut. So for some reason, there seems to be a bit of a resurgence. I don't know why. All right, guys, I'm going to finish this show. We're going to go to our Gemara show. I want to thank you very much for the learning from our grandfather, Steve. Thank you so much for joining us. And just have a wonderful day, Steve. I'm going to send the link for the Gemara show, guys.
Yeah, I mean, want to wish you, it is your time today, right?
Yeah.
So you and your family a long life.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Well done.